taxes each year, and then down the road, by the time they're 70, all that money is into a Roth.
I like the cut of your jib, sir. Yeah, that's exactly what we recommended, is converting it. Rolling over, you could roll over all the assets at once into an IRA. Okay? So you can put this in an IRA. Now, you know, I'm looking at trans one. Why? He's not contributing to it anymore.
Right.
So some of you are not contributing to, you lose the benefit of what? Very important management, risk management aspect. What is it? If you're not contributing to something. Dollar cost averaging. You lose dollar cost averaging because you're not having a chance to buy things on sale anymore. It's just a floating asset. So what's the thing? Diversification, of course, but active money management could help for something like that. What's another thing you could do? Is an obvious one. An annuity. You mentioned annuity, right?
Right.
Is annuity a bad thing for someone who's not looking for income?
No.
No, because there's accumulation version. There's some annuities are better for what? Income. Some annuities are better for just managing your risk. Like, what if everything goes to hell in a handbasket? I want to make sure the money managers could still lose, right? I want to make sure the X amount of this dollars do not go backwards. But I want to maybe I want to at least keep pace with inflation with this bucket of money.
Yes.
Okay? Now, you have to then check what annuities can you put money into that are convertible to a Roth IRA. Not all of them are. You have to figure out which ones are first. Okay? Then, what you can have is all this money in IRA. Now, how do you convert it over, like what Brett was mentioning? Well, a little bit at a time, right? Let's say we have $365,000 here. Okay? And we want to transplant this money that's all going to be taxable. And by the way, there'll be millions of dollars. The heirs would owe over $1 million of tax if they even with taking RMDs out. If just any normal growth of money, they're going to have a big tax burden later on. Okay? What if we get over the next 7 years, while you're not taking your Social Security yet, and you can depreciate some things here and right, maybe some ideas that what you mentioned, okay, that you could have a lower income that you're showing. And what's the new tax brackets? Do you know what the new tax brackets are?
25 minutes.
So remember, there's $24,000 of standard deduction. You're at 12%, all the way up to like 100 grand, right? For a couple. How would you like to pay 12% in tax now? What do you think the trade-off would be later for the kids? Do you think it would be higher than 12% for them? Way higher. It's already higher now. What's going to be when the taxes go up again in the future, right? So what if you can move? How much would it cost? What's 12% of? Let's even round up and say $400,000. 50 grand.
Yeah.
So it costs him 50 grand if he does it slowly over the next 7 years, hopefully before he has to start taking RMDs, okay? And then he's got all those assets over here in let's say we can't get to all of them. All right, whatever, there's a few here, but we can get a majority of the money over here in Roths by the time RMD time is. This money will never be taxed again, so he pays 50 grand in order to save the family $1 million in taxes, okay? That's one idea. Here's another thing. All this money's here taxable. How could we just shift things down into more tax-favored places that's already here? You already mentioned one, right? So
I would split the savings.
All right.
So
split
that they
the
have
savings.
some money for emergency purposes
Yeah.
also.
So what if his bills are $1,000 a month? 25 grand is like 2 years worth of, right?
Yeah, that's a good.
And he's like, yeah, 25, that's all I need, that's
Ratio,
perfect.
yeah.
So we take 100 here, and we split it between an annuity for tax deferral. I'm taking that money and putting it over here, essentially. And the other is in something that you can hold on to for a while and maybe pay long-term capital gains tax on, which isn't bad either, but it's liquid. What happens if something comes up? What happens if he wants to make an investment in something, a real estate? He obviously bought some real estate before. He wants to have whatever. It's gonna be there. But we've shifted things two places over.
Yeah.
Right now we're getting stuff over here. But that just deals with the current amount that he has. I'm talking more assets now. Insurance is another, right? What else can he do now? Do you see that there's going to be still an issue? Because every year, what's going to happen is $50,000 to $60,000 extra is going to show up in this guy's checking account. every year for the rest of his life. And even more when he turns 70. What do we do with that money? Let it sit there?
Nope.
Well, I'm thinking if his goal is to build, leave a legacy behind,
Yeah.
why doesn't he just open, the life insurance on his children, and then just build up cash value and give it as gift? He's still the owner, and then that is like, transitions the wealth in advance while he's still alive, and it's allow time for the children to, have the cash continue to build in those policies
Excellent.
as well. So
That's
then that way,
That's a nice
they
one.
know what they're doing, he's doing for them, and so he can see, and then at the same time, he's protecting them while doing that as well. So all of that expenses in income will just, do a 7-pay, or just even a lump sum into those policies.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
I think it's a great suggestion. In fact, there's 5 grandkids,
That's what it was.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just thinking about $250,000 in each, max funding those, that's $1,000, pretty much, right? But the kids too. So there's 8 beneficial. Now, one of his kids doesn't have any kids, so that's where maybe a trust can help sort out. Hey, what's the inequities here of why all the other grandkids have a policy, but this kid who has no kids doesn't get one. You can figure that stuff out, make it equal and fair, right? But that's one good suggestion. That's 8 insurance policies right there. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
What else? What other things that we do? Because we have a problem. The problem, you could have 2 problems. One problem is you have too much money. That's the problem you want. Another problem is you don't have enough money. This person is in the first bucket. He's got too much money.
How about college funding for?
And
the
only made
grand-
$65,000 a year, by the way. His whole life. Now he makes that. So it wasn't as, right, 40 years ago he wasn't making that. Just a very disciplined person. Millionaire next door type.
So how about college funding for the grandchildren, open not like a 529 plan, but there's another plan that the grandparents can open and,
Universal gift to minors.
yeah,
Okay.
that kind of.
529 could possibly be there as well. All those are things that could happen, right? What about just continuing to fund?
No, there is.
If you have a deferred account here that we're moving over here, right? I picked an account that he can continue to fund and accepts more money. There's single premium ones, and there's ones that you can continue to put money in. And I don't know if you know Delaware Life allows you to continue to put money in, and it doesn't move out the charge period for every. So it keeps the surrender charge period to 7 years, even if you put money in year 6. So those are, and so he can add to that. He can add to his alpha. I think alpha is a good place to add money to. So anything that you're putting that's additional, alpha is a great spot for that. What else? What other things can we think of? Good problem to have.
Yeah.
But here's the other part is, how are you going to explain this? You may know all the things of what you want to do. How are you going to break it up so it's in bite-sized amounts that the person doesn't get overwhelmed and you have the greatest plan and they can't receive that. They don't understand what you're even talking about. So how would you even break up how you would show this to somebody? Yeah.
I would type up an agenda, like A, B, C, D, and start with, making sure that, let me understand you correctly, your main goal is, A, to leave a legacy, and this is how we plan on doing this, and do it that way.
Okay.
I don't know if that's too unspecific.
I would draw a bucket that's called legacy and show how you are going to fund the legacy different ways from the current money situations that you have, and in that picture also put how you're going to move what money from where so that adds to the legacy bucket rather than taking away from it.
Okay. How many appointments? Probably do it on one appointment, right?
No.
No way.
No way,
Mini
Jose.
appointment.
So what happens is you get a client like this. This is a client, not a customer.
Yes.
There's a difference between a client and a customer. Customer is just a one-offer, maybe. You know, a client is someone you're always in communication with, you're working with. They're you know, eventually get them on autopilot because they know the plan, they know why they're doing what they're doing. But you know, we've already met with them, I think, 4 times. You know, and so far they know their picture. But it took 4 times meeting to help explain each part. Every time we explain a little bit more, we clean up what we did the last time, review that, and just add a little bit more into that they understand fully before, and then that's enough for today. We'll set up another time. It's very important to pace it where they're not glassing over their eyes, right? If you just have an insurance sale to do, it's pretty simple,
Yeah.
you know. But still, that you want to always identify different areas that you can, you know, come back and service them more, right? Because that's how you develop someone who may be currently a customer into a lifelong client who looks at you as the person who's going to take them where they want to go. Any other thoughts on this particular plan at all? Any other things that you may I like the second to die if we can do it. I think that's a good part. I didn't bring that up yet.
He has the income. So the rental,
Plenty of income to do
the
it. Yeah.
rental income can take care of
Can
it.
take care of it easily. Yep. You know, he came to the estate planning class. He feels really good about the fact that they're going to actually have an estate plan. Do you think that someone like this needs to have an estate plan?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Right? Everyone, not just like this, everybody but
needs it.
someone he's got properties to put into a, you know, that to avoid probate and you know, all those things. Now, Pat, do you have anything more on this? So the idea here is, personally, I like to start with how things are taxed. I like to talk about that because it's you're not talking about product. You're talking about how to structure their world, right? Like, and if you can get more tax advantage, because a product can fit in any one of these. But if you talk about how you can save them money, if just that one idea about converting the Roth converting to a Roth, and showing the difference in how much we're going to save the family in taxes with that one idea, does it matter what product I talk about at that point? No, because that person sees that I'm thinking beyond selling a product. They're thinking, wow, this guy just gave me $1 million in my pocket right now. Whatever else they have to say, I'm all ears.
Right.
So do you have to then sell
No.
Trans 1? Do you have to sell an annuity? Do you have to sell anything else?
No.
You don't. If you start selling a product, though, you got to sell the product.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And if one of the features and benefits of that product is tax advantage, okay. But if I can first convince them that, look, our main thing, if it's about legacy, we want to get as much stuff crammed in this bucket as possible. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Here's what I'm thinking that we'll do strategic. I'd even start talking product until the 3rd meeting. Okay, but now this family is, you know, it's something that they start to have that trust where you're the go-to on that. Yep, Wade?
No.
Oh, you're just yawning? Yeah.
I say the next type of approach, when you think about providing a solution for people, it's more or less like putting in pieces of a puzzle, correct?
Right.
So when you're putting in pieces of a puzzle to make the puzzle fit, then the product line will come in whatever it takes to do it, to make it work.
Whatever product that makes sense at that point, then it's just so what is another important thing though? In making recommendations of product is just knowing the risk tolerance. You got to know the risk tolerance before you know. So before I even know, well, how much annuity, how much Trans 1? I'm talking the middle bucket, right? Because it's deferred either way. The annuity doesn't help me out from a deferral standpoint. It's already qualified money. So how do I decide how much to do in which one and which to be safe and what? Well, I just looked at his current 401k statement. That's a good clue. Where's he invested now? He's been invested probably about 50-50 investors. So he's not like someone who's just purely in a fixed bucket who's never been exposed to risk before. He understands fluctuation already. am I gonna, now if someone has only very safe stuff, am I gonna spend a lot of time trying to convince them to be aggressive? Probably not initially. Over time, as they get more and more comfortable. But he's already used to some degree of that. Well, now it helps me kind of figure out, well, maybe we should do about half into the index annuity, and half of it, you know what, he's not going to need the money also. So if you don't need the money, what does that already let you do too? It lets you, well, not maybe, but it lets you on the investment advice part do a little bit more, maybe aggressive. And if he tests out that way, I do the 14 question test it out moderate aggressive. Well, he tests out moderate aggressive for money he's never going to have to touch. Well, it makes sense if he's not going to use it for 20, 30 years. I said, now you're okay with the ups and downs of, I don't care, I know it's going to be fine. He's already got the mindset that it's okay. If it goes up and down, it's not going to worry him. You got to take the pulse of your client.
Is he conservative or he is aggressive? It makes a big difference.
Yeah. So he tested out when I did the risk analysis, moderate for this money, only for this money, not for this money.
Mm-hmm.
This money he tested out moderate because it's liquid. This is money he's never gonna touch again, God willing. So he tested out moderate aggressive. So for this money here, why I like active money management is I can say which of these do I want to have as a moderate, you could think of it like, let's say you're 50-50 investor. And we're getting a little bit in the weeds here, but we just have a couple more minutes. We're a little earlier today. Let's say if someone is already used to 50-50 portfolio. What's the idea of a 50-50? Half of it's invested in equities and stocks, half of it's in bonds, which they're perceiving to be very safe, even though we know that may not be the case. Okay?
At their age.
At their age.
All right.
But let's say that, when we think of a 63-year-old, we're thinking of someone who needs this for their income for retirement. But if their goal is not to touch one dime of this money, so I'm looking at a 50-50 portfolio. Well, the 50% that's currently in bonds, can't that just be an index annuity? Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same. So 50% index annuity and 50% in a moderately aggressive portfolio that's maybe 70-30 is still more conservative than what he has now. Does that make sense? Still more conservative. So you have to figure out, though, you have to know your client.
Right.
You have to know your client and see what they become. By the way, can you always adjust your investment advisory portfolio?
Yes.
Things are getting a little crazy. You can adjust any time. And that's why I said, look, we start off this way. If things get a little hairy and you're like, what, I can't handle the risk, we'll just make an adjustment.
You also have another sale with a wife, with Gerber.
Yeah.
Best planning.
She has a $16,000.
That's nothing.
Yeah, but they're kind of self-insured, aren't they? Something
Right.
happened to her, what happens?
It's switching part of it into the Gerber, and so it's part of the plan.
You can do Gerber up to what, 25,000, right? So give her another 9,000 or 25,000 in coverage. Yeah, they may be game for that. I think their position on it right now is they feel they're self-insured. So if I was going to do a play like that, I'd probably go more the second to die idea.
Right.
Don't forget, they're talking about moving to Mexico. So when you go to Mexico, you can get help for nothing.
I know.
So
It's true.
yeah, so they don't.
They're not
even
talking
want
about it, they are.
Yeah. So
Not,
yeah.
They're definitely, like, he's going to retire and they already have a place. They're living there.
Yeah.
Gonna be living there.
and so you can get stuff for nothing there,
Yeah.
and you can live like a king.
Yeah. And they certainly have the assets.
Okay, a totally different idea over here. I would say, why don't you invest a little bit more in your real estate, get that rental income up, and then use that to fund maybe another policy or maybe another.
I don't make recommendations in investing in real estate, but I've left the door open for that. That's why I left a lot of money cash
Yeah.
here. I said, hey, you may come up with a real estate investment you want to put your money into. Awesome. I'm not going to make the recommendations about buying real estate because I'm not licensed to do it. Does that make sense? I want to talk outside of my
Yeah,
expertise.
maybe you introduce somebody else and then they can help them guide you on that way.
Yeah, there's a calculated risk with it.
Yeah.
There's a calculated risk.
Well, everybody should have this problem.
Right.
I tell you.
It's a lot, but if you can look at things like this all the time, and then you guess what? If you start to If your mind starts attracting things like this, you start to run into people with this. If we're always looking at people who are barely scraping by and trying to put a couple pennies together, you're going to keep on running into that. It's just true. We got to start stretching our minds and thinking about. There's so many clients out here like this. This is someone who doesn't make a lot of money. Think about how many people who make a lot of money too, right? So there's tons of these people out there, tons of them that we could find. But that's why we need a distribution system, right? Any other thoughts, questions before we close? All right, so is everyone ready for next week? Yes. The new time?
Yep.
So we're going to do two trainings every Monday now.